Hello and welcome to High Point Music's Gear Reviews. I'm Lewis and today I'm going to be taking you through the Boss TR2 Tremolo. The tremolo pedal is a pedal that modulates your volume signal evenly in most cases, whereby it starts at its full volume and then turns down and then turns back up and then turns back down and then up again and so on and so forth. Most commonly used for rhythm sounds and some faster lead sounds. So I'll show you what it can do and go from there. My clean setting is my Fender Stratocaster, running through our 2 notes La Clean. I'm running through the effects loop of the La Clean today to emulate the tremolo circuit in most amplifiers. So it's just set clean anyway. My neck pickup sounds like this. My bridge pickup sounds like this. And we're going from the guitar into our La Clean. The send of the La Clean, or the send of the effects loop, to the input of the tremolo. The output of the tremolo goes back to the return of the effects loop. And as always, we're running the pedal from our 9-volt DC supply. So let's make some noise. So the tremolo has 3 settings on it, or 3 controls on it for getting your vintage style tremolo sounds. The first of which is our rate control. The rate control controls the speed at which the volume ramps down and then up and then back again. You could equate this to the number of cycles per minute, and it gets its slower settings at the minimum, like this, and then turns up from there. So again, goes from something that's reasonably slow to something that's reasonably fast, and then depending on the other settings you can make that more subtle or more obvious sound. So I'm going to dial that back to about half the speed and show you the wave setting. The wave setting, I'll start at minimum, controls the shape of the volume envelope. So at its most counterclockwise setting, the wave is very smooth, and it'll be a linear increase to the top of the peak and a linear increase down, which sounds like this. So you can hear that sounds reasonably smooth. As we dial this knob forward, the wave will become more square. So it will increase faster and it will decrease faster. So we'll push that up to about 9. More. You can hear it starting to get a little bit squarer there. Starting to get pretty square there, choppy, and then at full, it's very quick to rise from its minimum position to its top position, and then it'll stay at that volume, and then it drops down very quickly to the lower volume. Which brings us to the next setting, and the next setting is the depth control. So what the depth control does is it sets the amount of difference between your maximum volume setting, or your normal volume setting, and the diminished volume that it will turn down to. So I'll just set this back to a fairly choppy sound, and if we go back to the minimum setting on the depth, you should hear very little or no tremolo effect like this. little further forward. A little bit coming through. And at about 10:30-ish there, you can start to hear that volume change happening. So about 2:30 now, and it's getting reasonably obvious to hear that that tremolo effect is happening. And that's the maximum depth. So there is the biggest difference between your normal volume, the unaffected signal, and the maximum cut of that volume modulation. So a great way to get this pedal to sound on the more subtle spectrum is to manipulate the depth and the wave to those lower sounds. What we'll do is I'll leave it at the maximum depth so you can hear the most amount of change between those two, and I'll bring the wave setting back from there so you can hear it at those maximum sounds. So it sounds like this. Hear that although that tremolo is reasonably obvious now that, or it's obvious to me now that I've pointed it out, it's starting to become more and more subtle. And then as we turn the depth control down, that will become even more so. There's almost no change to that with this particular sound. If you had a distorted sound or a more compressed sound where the guitar has more sustain, you might hear that a little more obviously. But as most guitar effects are used best sparingly in most scenarios, it's a great pedal for getting those more simple tones out of to allow you to use it more frequently. So the kind of sounds you could turn on and leave on for a verse or a chorus or a whole song sort of thing. From here you can turn the speed up and you will get that subtle sound, but with the quicker modulation you might hear a little bit more of a change. So we'll start at 12 on the speed, or 12 on the rate I should say, and go up. With that quick tempo, you'll hear that those subtle settings are not as subtle as before, and so there'll be a little bit more movement as we turn them up again. So that's how to get some tremolo sounds out of it. Again, you can use your ears and other pedals to make those sounds more obvious or less obvious. So what I'll do now is I'll take you through some of the settings I like to use with this style of tremolo, and we can hear what they sound like from there. So my favorite, one of my favorite tremolo guitar sounds is the song Bang Bang by Nancy Sinatra, and my version of those settings is like this. We set our rate control reasonably high. I call that about 2 o'clock. Our wave control to its full setting, its most clockwise setting, to get the choppiest sound. And the depth control all the way up, so we get the biggest amount of volume change from minimum to the maximum. So to me, that's a great rhythm guitar sound. Lead work is a little bit harder to get the slower sounds on, at least for me. So a good trick to remember is that when you turn this pedal on, the tremolo effect starts at the top of its cycle. So if you find it gets out of time, you can turn the pedal off and then turn it back on, and you'll start at the top of the most settings. So if you turn it on right on beat 1 of the bar, you'll be able to line yourself back up if you find you're getting out a little bit. The lead work at this speed setting isn't my favorite sort of sound. I much prefer some faster sounds for the lead. So I'll take you through a lead setting that I like to use now. The lead sound comes kind of from the manual. It's a little bit tweaked from there. They refer to it as a rotary sound. Because a rotary speaker has elements of modulation and pitch as well as volume, it's not maybe the best description, but that's how you can refer to it. So we're going to turn our speed all the way up, or our rate control fully clockwise. And it's pretty choppy. So I like to have the wave control about medium and the depth control to about 3 o'clock. So there's not as much of a change, which sounds like this. So the faster settings I find are a little bit easier in a scenario where maybe you aren't going to be able to get your tremolo dialed in quickly enough for the take or for the song. And so sometimes it's easier to turn it on fast and you'll hear that it's tremolo, and then in rehearsal or practice down the track, you can make a mark setting on the rate knob to get your sound. So here's the lead kind of work. So with the depth settings not quite as high and the wave setting at about medium, you're still getting a lot of sustain of the notes you're playing, and so you're not going to lose parts of what you're playing through that chopping of the tremolo sound. So to me, that's a great lead sound with the faster settings. I'll take you through a more of a vintage setting now, which involves us taking our rate control to about 12 o'clock, which is here. Our wave control a little bit more square. And our depth control is almost where I would have it. I'll just bring it back a little bit. So there's a few variations there. Again, the tremolo pedal is something that can be used as a subtle effect or an obvious effect, and while most guitar amps will have a tremolo effect built into them, quite a lot of them don't have a tremolo effect as well. So it's a great tool to have on your board if you're playing pop, country, rock, alternative, surf music, or some instrumental music. Again, it's a great way to get some subtlety or some movement to a rhythm guitar part that otherwise you might just be using clean. So I think a tremolo is probably on the top 5 pedals list that you should have in your arsenal. If you love the tremolo sound and you don't have one on your board, something like the Boss TR2 is going to be a really great, inexpensive tool to have there for knowing you're going to get the same sound out of it every time. So I highly rate Boss pedals, as I'm sure you're probably now aware. They're very well made, they sound good, they're easy to power, and they're a fantastic size. So for me, the pedal is I'd probably give the pedal a 7 out of 10. There are some modern features on newer, more expensive pedals that I really like, which doesn't really diminish the quality or the usefulness of this pedal. But yeah, it's pretty fun to have a play with. So if you like the pedal as much as I do, you can follow the links below to pick yourself one up. If you've enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Leave us a comment. We do love all of that feedback. And you can also check out our members area for some more in-depth and background information on this and other pedals. And I'll see you for our next video. Thank you very much.